Happy Tuesday. I can't believe it's Tuesday already. That's my Nova Scotia accent. Oh my gosh, dear, it's Tuesday already. I'm Dr. Laurie Davis, and you're listening and watching the Dr. Laurie Davis Show with my colleague, Dr. Ramin Modiri. And on Tuesdays, we talk about money, we talk about politics, we talk about business. We might be talking about what's your favorite dog. It doesn't matter. We're just here to talk. So, good morning or good afternoon for me, and good morning to you, Dr. Ramin. So happy to have you here on Tuesday again.
Absolutely. Good morning. Good morning to everyone. Yes, it's always wonderful to be here on Tuesday mornings and enjoy our. It's an hour show, but it feels like minutes because it passes by so fast. So it's wonderful to be here.
I know. It's like when I'm on the air, it's the fastest hour in the week. Yesterday, Sylvia and I interviewed Stephen Beardwood, who's
Mhm.
the executive director for Veterans House, and he has a book on the go. He's writing a book about the drug mefloquine and how that affected our military. You know, this is just a little interesting because this is big pharma. They were administered mefloquine, and that was for malaria, protection against malaria. But they were being deployed to the desert, and there is no malaria in the desert. Like, go figure.
Wow.
Isn't that something? I just think we give out so much valuable information. And I will quote give. We give out so much information. And so because of that, I'm just going to put it right out there right now to our viewers. Share the show. We're streaming live on Facebook, we're streaming live on YouTube. Like, just share the show. Because today there may be something that Dr. Ramin shares with us that somebody needs to know. And I know you're going to share information that we all need to know because we're going to talk about eggs today, even. Right? I can hardly wait for what you have planned because it's always great. And I've got my notepad ready and my pencil. And I take notes when you're talking, man.
Thank you. Awesome.
So, how's the weather in Southern California right now? It's Alberta. Let's do a weather report.
Okay.
Alberta, the sun is shining. We had a snow dump overnight. It's quite cold. So Pride is when I take him out, he's like, one paw up, then the other paw up. I'm honestly going to knit him a pair of slippers. I really think I should.
Yeah. Well, hopefully
So
spring
how's
will
the
be
weather
here.
how's the weather down there?
Well, relatively, actually, it's cool for us in
Right.
February. We do get like some good rain in January and December, but today is overcast. It's
Mhm.
56 degrees Fahrenheit. It's about
Okay.
14. So
Right.
for us, it is, it's a heater's time, It's like for most people is jumping in the ocean and swimming. For us, it's like, oh God, it's gotta get the overcoat out. But it's 56 degrees, well, 14 degrees Celsius. So,
Okay. So I got to tell you, I went to get some groceries
mhm.
and there was a guy. This was just, was it yesterday? The day before yesterday. A guy was coming out of the grocery store here in Alberta. He had on a pair of flip flops, a pair of shorts, a t shirt, no jacket, no mittens. Everybody else is all bundled up. Here's this dude walking out of the grocery store like he's living in California. I'm going like, are
Yeah.
you kidding me?
Well, maybe it's coming from Alaska or something. This was the
Yeah,
heat wave
maybe.
for him. So
Maybe. Who knows?
everything is relative. Yeah.
So yeah. So what are you going to talk about today? What are you going to share
Well,
with us?
uh, yesterday I went, grocery shopping. Our favorite store is Trader Joe's, and then we've been having. I mean, I'm have one egg every morning, and it's been good. And make sure my son has eggs, and So I go and see the sign is, please take only 1 dozen. The supply limited.
Oh,
And of course, the prices have gone to the roof. So
right.
I thought, why don't we have a little analysis of what happened to the eggs? On top of that, coffee is in a 50-year high. So we've had coffee going to the roof, eggs going to the roof. Then last year we had cocoa. If you're a chocolate lover, cocoa was unbelievable. It went sixtuple. I mean, it went six. You would have. It was 6 times the value over a year and a half. I mean, that's high it went. So cocoa. So I'm thinking if somebody wants to go on a date, forget about the fancy restaurant. Just go to Denny's and have breakfast and let your date pay for it because it's becoming more and more expensive to have eggs, coffee, and hot chocolate. So basically, that has been the trend. So uh, we like to look at not only what is the roots, but can we do anything about it from our personal point of view? We talk about the beauty of commodities are, they when we talk about commodities, things like precious metals, we talk about energy, edibles. So you have something which is above the ground, below the ground. Once you learn about them, it's for the rest of your life. Unfortunately, there's this mystery about them, and people avoid it, although they use it every single time. They rather talk about this artificial intelligence or biotech company, they have no clue what it means. They go invest in those, but things that they use on a daily basis, they never take the time to study and learn about them. And that's what I'm hoping maybe by end of our show, we have a little bit of understanding of there are ways that we can combat the rising prices of the food or energy. What can we do as a consumer, as an investor? So before I go into that, that is just I thought talking about education and learning about things. I know in your journey or your experiences, you've come to across people that they go to one seminar, they watch one YouTube, they read one book, all of a sudden they're the experts. They are telling you about things that they have no skills or no knowledge, but their confidence is to the roof. They think they know it all. And I've had this experience with people who, I mean, personally, I know people who have read one book about cancer and they're telling someone who has cancer what to do. Oh, no, you should do this. And I know the roots of it. Well, you know what? You just read one book or you just watched one YouTube. So there is a scientific studies done on this. And in 1999, David Dunning and Justin Kruger came with this psychological, uh, they call it uh, Dunning Kruger effect. What happens? And they found out that people who have no skills, when they learn something new, the relative understanding of their ability goes to the roof. So they overestimate what they know and they love to share it to everyone else because they are on the clouds and they think they know so much. So again, that's called again Dunning-Kruger effect. And what happens in this is they become very confident and very loud. So basically, because they think they know everything that there is to know. The interesting factor is that people who know, and they are, I'll call them like masters, they have done studies, they actually, the ones that they are very good at what they do, they underestimate what they know and what they do. And the reason is that the more we learn, the more we know that we don't know.
Right.
People who just read something, they don't understand that they don't know what they don't know, how much they don't know, because they think that's all there is. And that becomes a little dangerous when they start giving advice. I know you wouldn't fly on a plane when the pilot just read a book and now he's flying this 737 or 757, or a surgeon, just comes and said, "Oh yeah, I'm so
Yeah.
good. I just watched this YouTube. I went to the seminar. I'm going to do a surgery." And that's the problem that happens, especially with our, I would say, with our younger people, because there's a passion. All of a sudden, they're in the colleges, they're in the universities, they learn about something and they think this is it. I know everything. As a matter of fact, there have been studies done, again, Dunning and Kruger have done. You go to a gathering and these students come with their own opinions, which I would call opinions, not really knowledge. And they are, when they ask the audience about someone who's a master, who's been in the business or whatever, it could be in philosophy for 30, 40 years. When there's this discussions, the person who knows majority of time, they're very quiet. They listen, they observe. The student is gung ho, just repeats everything he's learned. And the audience generally favor the student because they are more convincing, they are
Oh,
very confident, and they believe in what they're saying. Because
wow.
again, the idea is that the confidence has gone this far, they think their knowledge is that far too. As the times goes by, and I know in your workshops you have also noticed that as we learn more, our confidence level comes down because we are learning that, oh my God, we don't know as much as we thought. So we strive to learn more. The beauty of this is the depth. As we learn now, we are building that foundation. So eventually we become knowledgeable and we know that we know now, but still know that we don't know a lot of things we want to learn. I've used this a lot. Warren Buffett, which is probably one of the biggest authorities, he still learns and reads every day. He's reading something new. Charles Munger, his late partner who died right before his 100th birthday, he every single day he was learning. Imagine being 100 and still thinking that you don't know enough. And that's the difference. And you see that in politics. You see that celebrities telling people what to do. Okay, they're a good actor, actresses. They do their own lines. They're smart in what they. But I don't need advice from someone who knows about the musical notes but has no clue about life in a general way. What average person goes through and giving them advice. So they mixed opinions with facts. What we learned was just a piece of a knowledge. And as a financial analyst, and in our the CFA code of ethics, it's a big no-no. You get reprimanded when you mix opinions with facts. If I'm doing a research paper, I want to make sure they're all factual, data-based or scientific. Or I cannot just call, my grandma, and my grandma starts complaining about the price of washer and dryer, and then said, "Oh yeah, neighbors the same, they're doing the same thing." And I said, "Oh my God, the washer and dryer price, there's a big inflation. There are circs nobody can afford it." Not finding out that she has never bought a washer and dryer in the last 20 years. Of course, compared to 20 years ago, prices are high. So I just don't write a paper. So, the price of washer and dryers are high. No, it's everything is relative. So we don't want to use
Mhm.
the opinions. So basically, it's interesting also, like talking about college or university students, they have these opinions. Let's say, oh, let's have a higher taxes for social benefits, social programs. They're all for everyone else. They graduate, they get a job, especially in New York or California and Massachusetts. They make 100,000. They end up paying like 50, 55% of taxes. You're like, what the hell happened here? Why am I paying so many? Well, you're the one a year ago, you were all happy with everyone else paying those taxes. So the reality hits. The real life is much different than a fantasy and a YouTube or book. So I just want to start with that because I know um, you've come across this, that people who have the least to say the most. And the ones who have the most, they're mostly quiet and they're good listeners, and then they give their opinion. So I'd like to hear, I know you've gone through this yourself. You were talking about that. And I just
Mm,
want to start with that from the
sure.
scientific side because it happens quite often. So,
Right.
especially in my investment world, the trading world, everybody gives it financial advice. But anyway,
Right. Well, I just saw an article, just for our viewers. You mentioned Warren Buffett, and I'm always interested in his life story and what he's done. And he still lives in the same house that he bought in 1958 for $34,000 in, uh, I'm not sure the state, Illinois, perhaps somewhere around there. He
he
still lives in the same
Nebraska,
house.
yeah,
Yeah,
Nebraska.
Nebraska.
Oh
Yeah,
my,
Nebraska. Like I knew it was like an isolated place. The same house that he bought in 1958, but he's got billions of dollars. So he didn't fall into the trappings of what most wealthy people do or what people do when they accumulate wealth. He didn't equate that to, physical possessions. I just found that very interesting.
no, I mean, I think you mentioned a very nice. If you'd like to share with our audience about our mission in life and making a difference, and he's devoted majority of his assets are in a trust fund, there's like a foundation, and the children will get a little bit. I mean, he still
Yes.
drives. He just bought a new pickup, but he drives his
Yeah.
pickup, goes to McDonald's, picks up his coffee, black coffee. That's his routine, and he makes sure that he's comfortable with that. So like you correctly mentioned, it's not about accumulating stuff. It doesn't give us the status that we think. It's about the difference that we make in lives of the people
Mhm.
that we care, and sometimes we don't even know we cared and they are part of the group. So we don't even know the unknown people. So yeah, yeah, very good point.
Great. So
Yeah.
what's next?
So, with having said that, now we come to again something was interesting. I'm like going, oh, eggs. Okay, it's been a big subject, especially since 2020. Well, obviously, COVID played a huge role on the prices of food. We had the supply, so I thought, well, why don't we talk about food today and what happened to eggs? Why they're it's gone to the roof. It was $1.50 or so a dozen 4 years ago. Now it's in California, average is like at $8.50 a dozen. And yesterday I bought it for like
Whoa.
$7 a dozen. Now, everything, the beauty of, I go back to commodities and things that tangible is supply and demand, right? So obviously when there's an interruption in supplies, but the demand is steady, well, the prices go up. If the demand goes down and the supply is steady, well, then the price goes down. So the funny thing is, here we have, I use eggs as an example. Well, you have a supply problem.
Hmm.
So what we've had a bird flu since
Oh yeah.
October 2022, which got a little better, but we got hit really hard again in October of past year, 2024, especially in, like we had 11 states, they got really hit hard. The last one, which was a big one, was in Ohio. We've lost over 149 million egg laying hens. And what has happened, because by law, there is no solution for bird flu. So they have to get rid of the chickens. So what happens, obviously, well, we have lack of supply, lack of production. So when it comes to commodities, again, the supply plays a big role. So when there's an interruption, that makes a difference. So a rule of thumb for the fundamental understanding of whether it's the energy, whether it's gold, whether it's coffee or wheat, supply interruption push the prices higher. Now, that could be like something like bird flu that we've had, or it could be geopolitics, what we've had like happen in Ukraine, Russia's invasion. It could be something like what happened with COVID. It could be local politics, could be regulations, it could be strikes. Majority when it comes to when we talk about above the ground, it could be the weather. Weather plays a huge role when we talk about foods like wheat, corn, in this situation, cocoa, coffee, and that plays a role as well. Now, one of the things it's really interesting that the demand side is also is a big factor. What happens with the price of, again, especially the commodities that we use in our everyday lives. Now, if the demand goes down, for instance, it's so funny how with this eggs we've gone up and down. One generation, or for years it was, oh, eggs are bad for you, high cholesterol, don't eat them. Oh no, they are really good food for you, you should have them, it's a good cholesterol. Oh no, it's bad. I've been back and forth in my adult life, this yo-yo. The funny thing is now it is on the good side. So if there wasn't a bad side, oh, do not eat it, well, most people would not have been really buying as many eggs as they needed. So basically that's one thing. So going back to the demand side also, it comes from our economy. Basically, if there's a slowdown, there's a recession in the economy, well, then we are very selective on what we buy and the things that we want to do. So it also could be the substitution. You have something, let's say instead of eggs, maybe I get some tofu, or so it's the substitute plays a role in like the demands, the taste, the government regulations about sugar, for instance, or corn syrup that affects the taxes on ethanol, for instance. So all of these, so you can see it, understanding. I think I wish I've tried to work with our school system, teaching them. Listen, understand the fundamentals. Everything starts making sense. Unfortunately, understanding fundamentals is not sexy enough. We have to have all these complicated subjects. We got to have a 1400 textbook to shove into students to just make them a good test takers. They don't really apply what they learn. And here, understanding the principles of commodities, I think will serve everyone. Um, help them uh, to manage their own finances, to manage their own basically uh, the investments, their budgeting. So so let's go back to the eggs, because then I will also talk about coffee. So eggs, that again the disruption from the supply side, and we've had a big farm in Ohio, for instance, and they in December alone we had like 39 million. It's like chicken's gill. So here's your supply. On top of that, states like California, we cannot have traditional eggs. They have to be cage free. So you have this regulation. So what happens is they because of that, the supply is even lower. So places like Trader Joe's, that's all they provide. Now, one of the other things, remember when the eggs were um, less expensive, what does supermarkets do? They would use as eggs, and they put them really low price to bring the customers in. It was a marketing scheme. So basically you look at it and say, oh my god, this dozen eggs are so cheap at this supermarket, let's go there. And then you end up shopping. Well, now that command doesn't work because they don't have enough supply to bring in the customers. And basically that becomes a challenge because they cannot, again, They cannot say, "Oh, come buy here." Well, they were absorbing the cost before. Now it's so expensive, and they don't have enough of it to bring. Because if they brought everyone in, the eggs will be gone at no time. So that's out the window. So basically, now what we have to do is, do we go and hoard them? Do I go to 10 different supermarkets, and what do I do with those eggs? And what is the future right now? Unfortunately, in the short run, we still have problems. There is no solution at the same time because of, we don't have the supplies. There is more and more. Indiana was another state, so we still got problems that we have to solve. So, and I mentioned about Waffle House, they put 50 cents per egg extra you got to pay. So there's a lot of things like that that's happening. So before I go on to solutions, how you can you protect yourself about the cost of eggs going up? I also like to talk about coffee. Coffee is a 50-year high. And what has happened with coffee? Why is it, especially, remember, there's Arabica, which is the good coffee, you make yourself, and then Robust, which is usually, it's a little lower grade. That's the instant coffee. So both of them have been pretty up there, and Arabica especially. And the reason is, Brazil, Colombia, they've had less than desired rainfall. So now they got, again, supply interruption in South America, but also in Vietnam. So now the supply interruption, the demand still there. People still drinking, although, a lot of people like to have tea, and some people say, well, coffee is not good. Now coffee is good. So the only thing is, for instance, countries like Germany and Italy, which is a big coffee, obviously, drinker, and Germany too, they have moved away from, let's say, coming from Brazil or Colombia, they're moving toward like India. So there's this alternatives. So coffee is, also, becoming very expensive. Last year, as I mentioned, it was cocoa, the chocolate, have hot chai, that was to the roof. It was so when you think about these things, you say, wow, these are really negative in my pocketbook. But the idea is, like, even your gas prices, as an investor, you have an out. And when I used to manage portfolios, one of the things I always did, I would buy investments in gasoline, for instance. So when they complain the gas price is up, we had investment in gasoline that it will go up. So although they're losing money on a daily basis based on their income, but their portfolio was growing. You can do the same thing with the commodities. You can actually invest in commodities in different forms. The easiest, but most sophisticated in some ways, which average investors difficult to do, is the futures market. And the futures market is something that it, people look at it as very confusing, but in simply, I put it this way: if you're Valentine's Day, by the way, is coming this Friday. So what do we have? We have chocolate, we have sugar. So if I'm a chocolate maker, 6 months in advance, I know, what, I have to have chocolates ready for Valentine's Day. If I'm making cakes for Chinese Lunar Year or Christmas, I'm, as a baker, I am anticipating that. And you've mentioned about, you've learned about seasonality and the cycles. Seasonality, that's what it is. Well, maybe a lot of people don't eat chocolate in May, but it's a big time. Everybody knows that we need chocolate and cocoa for sugar in for Valentine's Day. So if I am a producer, I have to make these things. It's May, June. What I do is, I know I will need lots of sugar and chocolate. So I go to the exchange and I ask a cocoa producer, I said, well, can you deliver chocolate in December to me, or cocoa at that time? So you make these plans ahead and you have agreed price in May or June. So it makes the things smooth for the producer because producer knows he has a buyer in the future, and that's what's called futures, right? And the buyer, the baker or the chocolate maker knows that at a certain price he knows there's stability. This is the price he's going to pay in order to produce the chocolate. So what happens? He puts a down payment. He says, "Okay, I need $1 million, and I give you 50,000." And that's how the futures market work. It's the commercials. So they use this in order to protect themselves in a different way. The certainty. Also, think about all these airlines with the prices of gas fuel going, the jet fuel going up and down. Imagine it's like a yo-yo. What happens to the ticket prices? So they have to protect themselves. They don't have places to store all the gasoline. The same thing, Baker doesn't need it 6 months ago to store all that sugar. So that's what the futures market help airline companies. They can invest to make sure that if the prices of gas, jet fuel goes up, they invested in it, so it goes up with it. Someone from Canada who is using Canadian dollar, well, can invest in US dollar while their um, money is the value is going down relative to the US dollar. Well, they can hold a US dollar. The reason I'm mentioning these things that there are solutions. Now, one of the best things have happened in past 20 years is average investor has access to something called exchange traded funds, and these funds they mimic those investments. If I want to have coffee, if I want to have a sugar, if I want to have corn or soybean, rather than going to the futures market, I can buy a fund and hold it. And if the price goes up, hey, I'm investing and I make money. About 5 years ago, when we had gasoline prices went really low, but we knew things are going to change. A lot of our investors they got into a fund. It was the gasoline fund. It was the symbol was UGA. It was under $10. It went to $90. I mean, it's a simple things, but you can invest. One of the negative things about ETFs are because they are themed. Sometimes a lot of companies which they come up with these funds, they don't make as much money and they close their funds. So, but let's say if you want to invest in sugar, you can invest in the cocoa. They are well for cocoa we have funds, wisdom tree funds in Europe, but not in United States or Canada at this time. But you can have access to that. The other interesting thing is you can play futures market. There is, by the way, there is a futures market for eggs. So some people who want to be speculators and start trading, which a lot of people like to use futures market for trading, they can use um, eggs, futures. It's an exchange, except it is in Dalian, China, and it's traded in yuan, the Chinese. So I don't think many of our audience are moving or are going to go to China and start trading eggs, but you do have that. So what else can you do with all these high prices of, let's say, eggs? Well, there are companies which are listed, like in the stock market, you can buy their shares. A company called Calme, which the symbol is CALM, call, their stock has gone doubled in last 12 months. Now, people, as I mentioned, they look at investing, it has to be high tech. It has to be into something unknown or going to cure cancer. Really, the best investments have been the ones that have made the common sense. They have been something that, I always use this example for the first 20 years of 21st century. By far, the best two stocks were Monsters, the drink, Red Bull, people who are like the Hansons, they were up 83,000%. And then the tractor supply. The tractor supply was people who like gardening. And that they were for non-farmers, and they were up 44,000% in 20 years. So it's
Hmm.
simple things. So think simply. So you can invest in Calmain, or there's a Pilgrim's Pride, which is PPC. They are working with chickens and eggs, or Tyson food. Tyson does beef, chicken, hogs, everything. So um, Calmain is from Mississippi, by the way. So those are the things that people can actually invest. So part of your portfolio, maybe you should have a small portion of your portfolio into commodities. Now, the beauty of this is that you don't have to have a large investments. You don't have to have a large portfolio to invest in these. Nowadays, it's so simple that a lot of companies, they don't even ask you a minimum investment. You can start with small amount, put a little bit at a time. I would encourage our younger audience to start investing a little bit at a time. Put $50 or $100. The beauty also is that you don't have to have the one whole share, one whole fund. You can have partial. So someone can with $50 can start investing in all the commodities. You can invest in gold, you can invest in silver, you can invest in crude oil or gasoline. So that's the beauty of the world that we are living. So that brings me to coffee. Now, the coffee again has the futures market. You could use it. We used to have two funds for that. One was called Joe, which was JO, and the other one was Cafe. But unfortunately, they're not with us anymore. But you do have companies that, the first thing that comes to everybody's mind in the United States and globally is Starbucks. My God, they're raking in. The thing is that we have to watch what is the cost for them. So they make sure they have, like Calmain had their own production center. So Calmain for a while, their chickens they did not get infected. That's why their stock was doing well. But everybody goes through that. So now they pushed the price of eggs because everybody wants them. So their sales have gone to the roof. So for the coffee, Starbucks, but there's also Dutch Brothers, which is unbelievable. They're doing really good. The symbol is BROS. And I know many of our Canadian audiences, they love Tim Hortons. Now, Tim Horton is not by itself, but it is owned by the Restaurant Brands International. So they're part of a group like Burger King and Popeyes, and they are owned again with the Restaurant Brands International. And if you want to invest in it, there's a stock QSR. So if you like to invest in the food type of things, you do have options, and that's what the stocks. The other one for coffee is the JVA, like a Java, and called coffee holding. So basically, you're allowed to experience these things. Don't shy away. So when the things are going up, have part of your portfolio part of this journey. So the money grows. A lot of people put all their money in cash and put in money market. Well, you know what? The inflation eats through your purchasing power, but also this could be a hedge against inflation. This part of the commodity, so you don't have to worry about as much as what is happening to eggs or coffee or cocoa. For coffee, I mean, for cocoa, the chocolate. Now with Valentine's coming, everybody knows about Hershey's or Nestle from Switzerland. So those are some other options. So I'm gonna go back to original discussion we had about we listen to, let's say, YouTube, or read a book. Is always good to have a fundamental understanding. So I mean, like for instance, I've got workshops like commodities in 90 minutes. So it's like we go through the whole thing, or we talk about different types of investments. It's good to know exactly why. Why am I buying something? Why am I selling something? And one of the best and the free places in the world that everyone has access to is the government, and not all the government agency, but when it comes to investing, exchanges and government agencies are a very good place to go. So, for our audience, one thing I would suggest, whether you're in Canada or United States or even globally, uh, I would go to the website of USDA, which is United States Department of Agriculture.gov. Now, it might be a lot of information, it might be too much information, but you know what? You're going to the source of it. You want to know what is happening with eggs, you want to know what is happening with soybean, what is happening with corn, when is the news coming up, what is happening with regulations. There it is. Unfortunately, a lot of us, we don't have the time. We are programmed for us the things to be digested and given to us. That's why the TikTok is so big, especially with our youth. We don't have the attention span. Just tell me what to do. I don't want to learn about the whole thing. But if you do have a chance and you learn about these things, this way the things are not filtered. You know exactly what is happening. So there's the USDA, and then there's the CME Group. And CME Group is the largest futures exchange in the United States, which stands for Chicago Mercantile Exchange. And you get tons of information, especially if you like to be a trader, if you like to learn how to trade futures, which is really fun, but very, could be very risky. So just remember that. So, but there are ways to protect yourself. So it's not just be helpless and say, oh, the price of bread is going up, eggs are going up, cake is going up. Well, listen, make it fun. Your knowledge can become actually a rewarding tool. And as I mentioned, you don't have to have a lot of investments to take advantage of this. So that's my little tidbit about our eggs and coffee and cocoa. And of course, gold is all-time high. And, the same thing happens with when you think about some of the demand, which like uranium would be with all the energy needed for artificial intelligence. So, I mean, these are all real life things that you actually can feel and see it. So, and it's kind of again, it's all supply and demand. So there are ways that you can, as I mentioned, you can understand it much easier than some of these fancy companies who come out and you need a doctorate degree just understand what they're saying. So
Mhm.
anyway, I hope that was helpful. That's from my
Yeah, well, I believe it helps us to understand the why. Okay, why all of a sudden? Right now, we're paying $4.35 for a dozen eggs.
oh,
So it's not so much like you are, but I think allowing us to figure out what the why, then that helps us to be more sensitive to the price rise in things rather than, taking a very negative attitude of being critical and why are my groceries so high and this isn't fair. And, I've never done that because I've always been so grateful that, oh, these big blueberries came in from Peru and they're $3.99 for a pint of them. How did they get those blueberries here for such a cheap price? When you think about the shipping and the refrigerated trucks and the drivers and everything that it takes to get a product to us. So, it's like when you produce a show, the audience just gets to see us here. They don't understand what
well,
went on behind the scenes to get the show here. And the sacrifices or the time or whatever it is that we're investing to be able to present. So we've got this thing where we look at the front line and we don't stop and think about behind the stage, behind the
right.
screen. And I honestly, if the stores want $5 or $6 or $7 for a pint of blueberries, and I know they're really good for me and they're an antioxidant, uh, okay, I'm getting the blueberries because I'm thinking we're paying that trucker, we're paying gas, we're paying transportation. How do they even get them here for that least amount of money? Seriously. It just drives me crazy. You know, you go to the grocery store and everybody's complaining about the prices, and my attitude is, okay, if your budget doesn't allow you to buy that ribeye steak for X amount of dollars, you don't get to have it. But let's be grateful that we have that option of buying it or not. And during COVID, when I would go grocery shopping, I would always thank the cashiers and the workers and the people stocking the shelves. I just said, thank you for being here. Otherwise, we wouldn't be eating. And you know, our farmers and our truckers, there's so much that goes on behind the scenes getting that box of blueberries on the grocery shelf. So just, if you want them, get them. If you can't afford it, okay, but don't be bad mouthing the cost.
No, that's a very valid point, but also it goes back to, like you just mentioned, how much it goes through. So the price of something is the collection of different things, and that's why it's amazing. Like corn price goes up, it affects the livestock, it affects the chicken, and then the the the, the beef, and uh, your gases, because there's ethanol in the United States. So everything. And then you talk about transportation, like you said. So when the price of something goes down, it also has an effect. So you could have one factor goes up, but let's say energy prices come down. Well, they kind of negate each other. Like in
Hmm.
Brazil, they do not have ethanol because they don't use alcohol from corn, they use sugar. The thing is, with sugar, it produces one third of what corn does, so they have to use more sugar, but it's all clean energy. So that's what. So if there's a usage, if the economy is really growing and the prices of gas is going up, it pulls the price of sugar with it, or the vice versa. So everything is interconnected, and nothing is on its solid, it's a solo on its own. So understanding, and that's the beauty of, I'm going back to commodities. When you understand things, when you understand that, my goodness, Russia invades Ukraine, and then the price of fertilizer went to the roof because they were the top exporters of fertilizer. Well, it affected soybeans in Argentina and Brazil, and the wheat. It wasn't just the wheat from Ukraine or Russia, but the things that we do, because we need fertilizer. What about the livestock? Everything is interconnected. So by understanding these connections, it puts us a little more at ease, and complaining, and like you just said. But it is, there's some, obviously, regulations always play a role. If it's something that you cannot do, or the corporation or the farmers are not allowed to do, you cannot, obviously that makes a difference as well. But understanding those factors, the beauty of that, I go back and I'll stop at that. The beauty of commodities is you don't have to worry about the the board of directors coming up with these ideas on the stock company, right? So, um, what happens with the CEO just cheated on his wife or something like that? It doesn't affect the commodity. It doesn't have to do anything with oil prices. When you're investing in just individual, some of the stocks, which are very solo story on its own. I go back to AI, for instance. There's a lot of elements. With commodities, probably have 25, 26 really, the, the ones that are used all the time. That's all. Once you know the story, it becomes a fascinating story, because now you have control of a large portfolio because you understand them, and you can
Right.
invest in different sectors, whether it's food or energy or precious metals, or some nickel or lithium, and all of these. We live on that. We need energy. I mean, our life, imagine what will happen to us. I mean, we're talking on
Yeah,
internet. So
exactly.
all that technology comes from energy. There will be nothing without the grid, electricity, without the internet. But internet comes from the energy which is take us to where we are. So
Yeah, exactly. Because if I hadn't paid my power bill, we wouldn't be here today. Is that what you're saying?
well, I was saying, well, that's a good point too. But without those power, grids, and without the production of those, we won't be here.
No, that's right. That's right.
So we need the
Exactly.
energy. So
Yeah.
technology runs on that, including
Hmm.
cryptocurrencies. So
Hmm.
yeah.
So, Kathy, just speaking with you, I see you put a few comments up there, but when you name a store, I'm not putting them up because if that store would like to buy a sponsorship and help support the show, we'll promote them. So when you're talking about, I get this at this store and I get this at that store, we don't mention the names unless they're going to buy, they want to sponsor the show. Because one store in particular you've mentioned a few times. So I'm not promoting them. So if you want to put your comment up without the name of the store, perfect. Just letting people know that. Okay. You don't get to do free advertising for a store. Yeah. No kidding. Eh? We talk about them because they might be directly linked to the markets or whatever. But yeah.
Yeah,
Thanks, Kathy.
it sucks.
Because
Yeah.
Kathy said, she's on a budget. She buys certain products from another store and she buys bulk,
Yeah.
frozen berries, etc. We understand all that. Yeah, that's important for you to remember when you're making comments that we're not prepared to support or promote a big company that should be probably sponsoring the show. And we mention them all the time. All the time. All right. Well, I think that's our day for today. And, you know, just on a closing remark, maybe around the latest on the tariffs, what's happening there, because I saw the latest steel and aluminum coming in from Canada, and we're your biggest supplier, and they need that for so many industries. That's unfortunate.
Right. The companies that produce in the United States, for instance, we have um, the Cliff, we have Nucor, we have U.S. Steel. Well, their stock had a big jump in the last 2 days.
Mm-hmm.
Now the next thing is we have like copper would be next in line. So yeah,
Mm-hmm.
we'll see how that will affect in the long run because this is the first line of production. So yeah.
Right. Right. So I'm going to give Kathy an assignment. And she said, "Thank you, Laurie. I'll do that next time. Makes sense." Kathy, the next time you go to that favorite store, you ask to speak to the manager and you say, I'm in a position where I could promote you on a regular basis because I work for the Disability Channel and we have lots of shows. And we could, if you'd like us to promote you on our show, you could be looking at the opportunity to have a sponsorship and then just give them my number.
Mhm.
There you go. They probably know who you are. You're there so much. That's the beautiful Kathy Bell, one of our behind the scenes workers here. Because everybody thinks you just show up and do a show. Well, we do that pretty much, but there's a lot of preparation when you hear Dr. Ramin talk about his facts and his the research that you've done, and that all takes time and energy. And so, yeah. Mm-hmm. Sponsorship coming up because we're soon going to have a sponsor for our show because of the valuable information we give out. And yeah, hey, let's do it. Yeah. All right. Well, thank you so much for being here. It's always a
Pleasure.
pleasure to do a show with you on Tuesdays. And we'll talk later. We have a class tonight. We do a class every Tuesday and Thursday, Dr. Ramin and I, 100 Shades of Prosperity.
Mhm.
And we're busy working with clients right now who are engaged in that process. So on Tuesday nights, we do soft skills that I share. And then on Thursday night, the hardcore technical financial stats and so on with Dr. Ramin. So we've been working with our clients now for quite a few months. and we're all learning so much about money and finance and how it works. So thank you for that as well, because these are things. Would you like to put a little plug in for your upcoming 10 workshops that you're planning? Tell everybody about that.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, this is a first time I've worked with a lot of traders and investors, but what I thought for the uh, next 10 weeks, well, we start end of the month, so we have a big promotion going on. And this is like on hand learning how to be financially independent, learning how to invest, trade, and it's the variety of subjects. I just talked about commodities. You will learn about currencies. You learn about um, options and stocks and how to value stocks and well, the psychology of it. Having that self worth element of worthiness, and we look at the fundamental sides, seasonality, cycles, technical analysis. My favorite technical analysis. So by end of the 10th week, I think you'll have a lot of foundation to get the ball rolling on your own. And this is the most intense workshop that I've ever done. I mean, putting a lot
Oh,
in
wow.
10 weeks. Well, we got one bonus week, and that would be um, the bonus week will be about my favorite strategies, whether trading gold or is it
Oh,
oil or
that's like,
stock. Yeah, that's a
that's like,
bonus.
you know what that's like? That's like giving me the recipe for Kentucky Fried Chicken.
Ah,
And that's
well,
the only plug they're going to get today.
very
Okay.
few people know that. I mean, I've shared
Yeah,
it with, but
exactly.
this
Just like
is,
a
I think,
secret recipe.
yeah, that's my secret recipe. So,
All right.
anyway, yeah, that's what's happening. So, thank you
All
for
right. Well,
asking.
we'll get that out there. Okie dokie.
Appreciate
All
it.
right. Thank you, Dr. Ramin, for being with us
Thank you.
today. And thank you, everyone, for watching. And of course, remember, we're streaming live on Laurie Davis' Facebook page and also our YouTube channel, Laurie Davis Show Host. So if you have a friend or someone who needs to hear what we talked about today, just go in there. And when you go in to share, it's really nice if you leave a comment, because that really helps our ratings. And a lot of people don't know that. They think if they go in and just like it but take a minute or two and just make a comment, your feedback on the show. And that really supports our subscriptions and our viewers. All right. So bye for now.
Thank
Oh my
you.
goodness.
Thank you. Have a great